Blunt Astrology. My name is Adam Riancho. I am your astrologer. And for this video, we are going to talk strictly about the sign of Virgo. This video is mainly intended for Virgo rising, but if you are a Virgo sun, Virgo moon, you're welcome here. And before I get into the astrology, just want to remind you to subscribe to this channel for more content like this. And I will be revisiting this sign later on in the month of September. But this video is not just for September, it's mainly the entire Virgo season. Starting today, the sun has officially entered Virgo, and with it, Mercury has shifted retrograde. It has been in Virgo for quite some time. So let's take a look at your chart, Virgo. This chart specifically is for the 31st of August, and that is going to be when the full moon is opposite you in your seventh house. This full moon is going to be in Pisces, so definitely a heavy activation for you. And I feel like even though we could go with today's chart, I think the full moon is specifically the most powerful, emblematic of the overall vibe of the month of September. It really sets the tone, and given how it also includes the Mercury retrograde and Venus retrograde on that day, specifically August 31st, I feel like this is the best chart to look at for the month of September. So let's also remind you of some key dates as well before we officially get started. Mercury is going retrograde today. So that is symbolized right here. The green symbol is for Mercury. And it won't station direct until September 15th. So the next 3 weeks are really the vibe of this. That's the vibe for these next 3 weeks, this Mercury retrograde in Virgo. And the shadow period, the period after it moves direct, that's still crossing over the period that it moves through originally, will end September 30th. So the retrograde starting today, I guess last night, technically on the 23rd, 24th of August, is really the flavor of the entire month of September, even though it technically is over midway through the month on the 15th. We mentioned that the moon is also going to be full on the 31st, so that's really going to heighten this specific transit for you. It's going to be completely opposite the sun, and the sun is basically being flavored by that Mercury retrograde as well, given they're both in your home sign in your first house. But aside from that, we are still in the throes of Venus retrograde, and that's been the case since late July, July 27th, I believe. And Venus will be going direct on September 3rd. So finally, we're going to get a little bit of relief from that. However, like I was mentioning with Mercury and the shadow period, it is not going to be over until October 7th. So we started this Venus retrograde at around 28 degrees of Leo. We've pulled all the way back and will be pulling all the way until 12 degrees of Leo. And we won't be back at 28 degrees where we started of Leo until October 7th. So really this entire theme started in late June, the 20th of June to be specific. And until we hit October, we're really not going to be out of the woods completely. Like, even though the retrograde periods are going to come to an end, that shadow period is still going to be very much the vibe over the course of September. So the retrograde period is really the tone setter. When we start September, technically right now even, 6 total planets are retrograde, and only until we get into October will things really start to feel different. So that is something to keep in mind, especially when it comes to this Venus retrograde. It has been going to work on your subconscious, your 12th house. So all of the mechanisms that really run your day-to-day life, all of your decision making that are unbeknownst to you, but really running the show. That is what the subconscious, the 12th house, is all about. I like to make an analogy that the 12th house is really an iceberg where we believe that our personality, our identity, everything about us in our inner workings of the mind are all on the surface, but really they're below the surface. And like a typical iceberg, sometimes 90+% of the total volume of its total mass and size is actually under the water, under the surface. And that is the analogy that I always kind of harpen back to whenever I'm discussing the 12th house. So Venus has been reassessing how you value yourself. And once this transit is over, I think that's going to be the case for you for a long period of time until we kind of revisit Venus and Leo next year. You are going to have this newly shapen identity that is really running the entire show, not what you are really putting face forward. So that is something to be excited about. The 12th house transits can be tricky. But last thing I want to mention before I just talk about my interpretation of these transits that's really worth mentioning. It's already depicted here, but remember this chart is for September 31st. Mars will be entering Libra on August 28th. So we still have 4 more days where Mars is in your sign of Virgo. Mars in Virgo is a little bit of a perfectionist. I mean, Virgo can already be a little bit of a perfectionist, but Mars in Virgo doesn't really want to act too quickly on anything until it knows that the plan that it has devised, that it's set up, is really foolproof. It wants to know each step of the plan is set in place and ready to go. And until it feels confident and comfortable, only then will it move. So because we are in the later degrees of Mars in Virgo, I think some of those plans that you have been making, that you've been waiting to move on, are finally coming into action. You're finally making a move on them. And over the next few days, they are coming to fruition. This has been a very temperamental, kind of frustrating transit for you in your first house. So when we get to August 28th, when Mars enters Libra, you will feel a little bit of a reprieve from this. Mars is not really a planet that the sign of Virgo really loves to be in contact with. It's kind of antithetical to the overall pace and vibe of Virgo. So that's something to keep in mind, something to look forward to. It will be a bit more gentle when we enter Mars in Libra, and entering your second house definitely going to help liven up that money sector of your life. That's what the second house is all about. But let's briefly touch upon the Mercury retrograde once again. Taking place in your first house is a true reworking of your identity. The fact that it completely engulfs Virgo season means the sun in your sign is heightening this test of confidence, and I think you will have no more tolerance for bullshit, especially given we are pretty much done with Mars in Virgo. That's what it's been priming you to understand. The frustrating bullshit that is taking place in your day-to-day life, you are saying no to very vehemently. So that is exciting. And the day that I think this will be most heightened, when the sun and Mercury will be completely exactly conjunct, it'll take place at 13-14 degrees of Virgo, and the date to circle on your calendar are the 6th and 7th of September. That's really when the strength of this transit is going to be derived from. And this period will be at a peak on those days specifically, giving you a week from the full moon. So the full moon takes place on the 31st, and a week later, the 6th and 7th, is when the sun and Mercury are conjunct. It gives you a week to really embrace the emotional clarity that the full moon is going to stir up for you. So that is when you should really act upon it. And while we'll still be in the throes of the retrograde period, I think following the 7th of September, the last week of the retrograde period, you're going to have a lot more mental clarity in terms of what this transit is trying to teach you. So that's something to look forward to. It's kind of a shorter Mercury retrograde, only 3 weeks long, but I think once we're 2 weeks into it, you'll start to feel a lot better. And speaking of that full moon across from you at the moment in your seventh house, full moons can signify endings. So, given it's in the seventh house of relationship, this would relate mostly to your long-term partnerships and love life. Maybe you won't be breaking up per se, but maybe you will. Perhaps you'll be standing more in your value and claiming the truths that this Venus retrograde has uncovered. Venus is also a planet that influences your love life as well as your monetary attraction. And maybe you need more from your relationships, maybe you need more from your job, but maybe it's been proven to you that the relationships that you have invested in do properly value you. And over the last month, I think you have been gaining some confidence, especially when it comes to stepping into your power and claiming that value that we are talking about. So I think you are ready to take the next step, especially following the full moon. But keep in mind, because of what I mentioned to start this video, the shadow periods and the retrogrades won't really come to fruition until the end of September, beginning of October. It might be more of a slow build in order to really complete this full process. But either way, the end of August represents a checkpoint for how you view yourself. So the next few days are really a good time to reflect and take more of a broad bird's eye view approach to where you are at in your life at the moment. If you are a Sun in Virgo, then let me be one of the first to wish you a happy birthday. Either it's today, tomorrow, or in the coming weeks. I think that is also going to really boost your attraction and the overall good vibes and energy in your sign of Virgo. So that's really something that's we should all look forward to. But let's see, where was I in my notes? It's a checkpoint in terms of how you view yourself, not only as an individual, but also in your love life, especially. And the theme, again, is to just honor that value, not sell yourself short. This will flavor the entire month of September, and you'll finally get some relief on October 10th from the Venus retrograde, when Venus finally comes into Virgo. We were so close to having Venus in your sign in the end of July, but that's when it stationed retrograde. It was like almost, and then we're gonna make you wait for it. Once we hit October 10th, in the throes of Virgo season, you will finally get Venus in your sign. That is really, really going to boost all of that attraction that we were talking about. So a little bit of a wait is still in place for you, Virgo, but it's all going to be worth it. It's all going to really, really be heightened coming to fruition. I think you're going to have a very, very lovely time in the month of October when all of these retrogrades are finally over and Venus enters your sign. So I would really look forward to that. I mean, that 12th house transit is not easy. And once it enters your first house, you're going to feel a lot more confident and you'll feel it much, much more. So that is really exciting. And lastly, just to mention, we touched on it briefly, but Mars in Libra will give you the firepower to address any misgivings, any disappointments, especially in your financial sector. Not only is your emotional value going up, but so should your income. And I don't think you should be shy at all to raise your prices and, maybe ask for that raise. Your hourly wage should be going up, in my opinion, during this time. It's a great time to capitalize on it. So, especially when the sun also enters Libra, I think that's also going to galvanize this overall vibe. That takes place on September 24th. So, money will be on your mind for the last week of September, and it's the perfect time to claim it. It will be coming your way. So those are the astrological transits that I have for you during the month of September. The full moon really flavors the entire month. And once those retrograde shadow periods are in full effect, I think you'll be much more calm, much more centered, and ready to move on. But now that we are done with that, we will enter the second portion of the video. And for this, we will be pulling some cards from the tarot. So, maybe you skipped ahead in the timestamps for this section. This is much more emblematic of not just Virgo rising, but the entire sign of Virgo. And just some quick rules on how I read cards. I do read them if they land reversed, but if they land face down or obviously upright, then I'm going to read that card upright. And with that in mind, let's see what the universe, what the tarot has for the sign of Virgo over the course of Virgo season, and more specifically, September, the next 30 or so days. First card, Hanged Man reversed. So we've been biding our time. We've been in a bit of a holding pattern for sure lately. I think the retrograde periods are very, very much coming up in regards to that. Second card, though, is the Two of Cups. So I think love is on its way. I think there's a partnership here that is not one-sided at all. I think this is a person that feels just as strongly about you as you do about them. You may have been not really feeling it too much lately, but I think it is coming in for you, Virgo, and that is definitely the flavor of that full moon for sure in Pisces in your 7th house. But we have two more cards that come up. The High Priestess, so your intuition, your internal thoughts, that monologue of yours that you're not really speaking into existence, but just allowing to run its course in your mind, really, really present here. And then the Two of Wands. So there's a plan that you've been putting into effect, that you've been forging, crafting in your mind, and it's time to get out of your comfort zone. While the world is in this person's hand, they are not acting upon it. They are not leaving their little perch that they are on. They have some good passions and some good plans, but I think they've just been a little slow to act on them. I think that's really emblematic of the final few days of this Mars in Virgo transit. So those are the first 4 cards that came up. Let's keep going. I like to pull at least 10 for you during these readings, but let's see what else is coming up. We have 3 cards that fell, and first one is the Lovers. So that is also definitely emblematic of that Two of Cups that we saw earlier. I think love that has been reshapen in your 12th house of the subconscious is really coming forward. However, you do have a lot of options at the moment. There's a little bit of lack of clarity when it comes to how some of these people feel about you. I think some of them might be a wolf in sheep's clothing. Remember, not all that glitters is gold. And it's funny. The thing that this card makes me think of, I don't know if you've ever seen Indiana Jones, and I believe it's The Search for the Holy Grail. It's the third one, the one with oh my god, I'm forgetting his name. He used to play James Bond. It's kind of an old movie at this point, but it's the third installment in that series, and they have to search for the Holy Grail. At the end of the movie, bit of a spoiler. I mean, if you haven't seen it, it's whatever. But when he's finally reached his goal, when he's finally made it to the Holy Grail, there's someone that guards the Holy Grail, and he offers him the option to drink from the cup of eternal life. However, there's many different cups that are displayed when he finally reaches this final boss, so to speak, in the movie. And if you choose the wrong cup, you die. Like he's there with like the villain of the movie, the Nazi that's also chasing after the Holy Grail simultaneously as him, and they're like so convinced that it's obviously the most beautiful cup of the bunch, and they grab the golden vessel and they dip it in the water, and they're like so fast to drink from that cup. However, it very quickly ages them like 100 years in the matter of like 10 seconds. Like that is like such a very deep visual that's kind of like ingrained in my mind when it comes to the Seven of Cups. Like you need to make a decision, and just because there's like a lot of glamour to one of these decisions doesn't mean that it's actually right for you. Oh no. Oh no. We had a little mishap here. I may have put the wrong battery into the camera. So give me 1 sec. I'm gonna swap the battery, and we'll be right back. I promise. There it is. Speaking of making the wrong decision, I put the wrong battery that was not fully charged into my camera. So that is, a lesson for all of us, not just you, Virgo, but also me. I have a bunch of Virgo placements as well in my chart. I have Moon in Virgo as well as Mars in Virgo. They're in my 8th house. I'm a rising Aquarius Capricorn Sun, in case you're interested. But I think that's a perfect example of the lesson that I think is trying to be hammered home here. Choosing incorrectly can have some repercussions involved. So it's a little bit tricky to know exactly what is the right choice to make, but I think trusting your intuition, which came up earlier in the High Priestess, is really, really important. But the lover situation that might be a little bit more flashy, a little bit more, glamorous, perhaps might not be all that it's chalked up to be. Perhaps the more practical, more value centered alignment type of decision, I think, is probably where you should be going. And the third card that also came up in this bunch is the Queen of Swords. And the Queen of Swords is definitely coming from a place of authority. Like being on this throne with the sword present means that this person's mind is very sharp, and there's like some heavy winds, some big turmoil depicted by this tree in the background. Like there's a lot of leaves being shaken at the moment in the background, and that's the general tumultuous wind. This queen is not phased in the slightest. They have a sharp mind. They know what words to use. They are not stuttering when it comes to making these decisions. And if they need to swing these swords, if they need to cut people out of their life, they are going to do so. So just because it's a queen doesn't mean it's strictly female. This is not a gender-based reading. It is for all of us Virgos, everyone who is influenced by Virgo placements. So we will keep going a little bit further. We will wrap up this reading. Again, I like to get at least 10. We've only have 7 cards so far during this period. And boy, this one really flew out. The 5 of Swords is your next card. And the theme of the 5 of Swords is feeling hurt, feeling like somebody may have taken advantage of the situation, maybe played a little bit too rough and not really appreciated where you're coming from and the gentleness that you may have to offer. But because of that, you're ready to step away. Maybe you're the person who is holding these 3 swords and wants to keep fighting. Maybe you're one of these people that has walked away. But either way, the argument, the fight, whatever it is, has just gotten a little bit too difficult to bear, and it's time to put it to an end. So I think that is definitely a bit of a theme. I mean, I mentioned how the full moon can have to do with endings a little bit. There's possibly a breakup on the horizon. I don't want to jinx you. If you are in a good relationship that doesn't resonate with you, then leave it. Take what resonates, but leave the rest. However, that's kind of a bit of a vibe that I'm getting so far. I don't think your value has been properly honored, and your intuition knows where you should be going. However, you have been biding your time significantly. Remember, the first card out was that Hanged Man. So there's been a lot of pause, a lot of hesitation, and maybe some clarity that has come in this position. I mean, it is reversed. So typically, like, we see it this way when it's upright, and it's clear that this person is dangling from a position that they put themselves in, but is not allowing them to move in any which way direction. However, when it's upright, it almost looks like they're performing a balancing act, and their head is kind of like has that halo around it. There's a certain sense of enlightenment that comes with it. Not only this, but the leaves that were hanging from the top of this tree or wood, so to speak, when it's reversed, like, they kind of don't really mean anything. But when it's when it's upright, excuse me, they don't really mean anything. But when it's reversed, it almost makes it look like it's part of the landscape, and it can trick you into thinking that everything is okay. So I think maybe we've been in this position a little bit too long, and once we understand that maybe some of these cups aren't really what's best for us, don't really have the best plan for us long term in mind, I think we can step into our power and release what has been ailing us, what has been giving us some problems. So I'm going to shuffle one more time, but we have shuffled a full rotation and not gotten any cards. That's usually a sign that I interpret as maybe this reading is done. So I won't push it. If there's no more cards that come out after one more shuffle, that will be it. But let's give it one last chance. What is the resolution of this reading for the sign of Virgo? We have two more cards. And before I show you what they are, I'm just going to finish. We have another two cards and one more. Another one. Oh boy, now it's coming out. Okay, there we go. So this will be the wrapping up of this reading. And to complement the Queen of Swords that came up earlier in this reading, now we have the King of Swords. So really, that authenticity, that authority, that power, and the lack of wavering in your mind and your convictions is really, really a theme here. I think you are really going to step into your power and, not tolerate that bullshit. Remember, that's something we mentioned in the reading. The bullshit is not going to be something that you enjoy moving forward. But next, we also have the Devil card. And I think for you, I think there is a sense that maybe as you finally stand up for yourself and no longer tolerate that bullshit, I think you're going to adopt a slightly angry, vengeful type of mindset. I think there could be a little bit of sense that you're like really tired of having your toes stepped on and having your value infringed upon. I think there could be a really strong sense of, you know what, fuck it. I am tired of being the better person. While karma can maybe handle things, outside of my control, maybe it's time to just take the reins a little bit and inflict that karma yourself. But next we had the Knight of Pentacles and the Ace of Wands. So I think as this happens, there's going to be a renewed sense of passion, a bit of money coming in, and a bit of readiness to move on to the future. There's a bit of extra passion involved here and a little bit of extra optimism. I think you can view things a little bit more transactionally than normally. I think, not everything has to be this like long-term investment and like everything needs to be, above board and everything. Sometimes you just need to let loose. Sometimes you need to have fun. And if you have the money to do so, go ahead and spend it in order to get what you need. That's what's going to bring you that new invigoration, that new sense of passion, and that liveliness that we all need. But next we have the King of Pentacles, and oh boy, that I think is that Mars entering your second house, the end of September. I think as you start to shift your mindset, start to shift into your second house when the sun finally joins it, September 24th in Libra season, this is the generational wealth that you will be accruing. So that is very, very important, very significant. But there's three last cards. The Six of Cups. The Six of Cups has to do with nostalgia, a bit of looking backwards, a little bit of mutually beneficial transactions, but also some emotional benefit. And then finally, the Three of Swords reversed, along with the Seven of Pentacles reversed as well. So I think while this is kind of a scary card, I mean, there's heartbreak kind of infused with this general card interpretation. Whenever I see it reversed, I love that reading so much more, because when it's upright, how are these swords getting out of this heart? It's going to be very painful to pull them, grab them. Like there's, if anything, gravity is only pulling them deeper down into the center of the heart. However, once it's reversed, gravity also does its thing and they're able to fall out on their own. It's never a pleasant experience. It's never fun. It's never easy. But these swords do need to release, and they do need to, allow your heart to heal. That's kind of how the heart grows, like it's a painful process, but as it gets scarred, sometimes it's able to get fortified and grow and learn from those lessons so that it never gets scarred again, never gets wounded. But I think you've been a little bit tired of how long this process is taking. And as these seeds are kind of starting to spoil, they're not quite growing as you always wish that they were. I think that melancholy is going to finally be over with. I think you will be moving on from the pain and heartbreak that has been present for you. So a little bit of an odd place to end it, Virgo, but those are the rules, and we are not shuffling anymore into this reading. So very, very interesting. I think there's a lot of decisions on your plate, but as the retrogrades finally end, I think when we enter October, you will finally have a little bit more clarity in terms of not only your love life, but your sense of self-worth. And I think the vibes that I think you need to adapt and step into, I think, is this Queen and King of Swords combo. Don't tolerate any bullshit, Virgo. Let your mind speak for itself. Trust it. And you have the words. You have the authority. Use it. Very exciting. Looking forward to speaking to you next month in late September. But for now, that's all I have for you. My name is Adam Riancho. And remember, if you haven't already, if you enjoyed this reading, hit that subscribe button. Help me grow this channel. And hit that like button for me. And I will see you next time. And really looking forward to our next chat. Have a good one, Virgo. I'll be thinking about you.